Hi everybody, welcome to Daily Breaking, a special edition of Daily Breaking. I'm Mauro Di Pasquale. You're watching us here at 194 cable channel, City of Worcester. Also online at WCCATV.com and on Facebook live feed. We appreciate you joining us. If you'd like to support our nonprofit television community media programming here at the station, simply text WCCATV to 243-725. That's text WCCATV to 243-725. Just a word about what's up ahead. Today we'll be interviewing an author. His name is William Butler. Before we go to William, talk about his book and the subject of addiction. I want to let you know that tomorrow we have Debbie Maruka Hoke. She's the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity, Metro West, Greater Worcester, and she'll be talking about what their organization is doing to address the COVID-19 pandemic situation that we're in. Again, we advocate less fear and more facts in this. So please do your reading, do your homework. You don't really have to be so fearful. With that, and without further ado, I want to get into today's program with William Butler. He's the author of Roads to Addiction, Highways to Recovery. William, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, William, where do you live now?
I live in Westboro.
You live in Westboro.
Right down the road.
Great, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about your book. I want to first of all establish what our viewers know about you as an author. So what got you started in this, and what inspires you to write?
When I was in Quincy at one time, and I was on the street, and I can explain that, but when you hit the street, it's a whole different world. And I was in Quincy, there was a nor'easter, I think it was 2014, spring clothes, sneakers, freezing, and I stood there and I said, people have to know about what's out here, what's going on. Whether it's Worcester, whether it's Waltham, whether it's Framingham, Boston, I don't care, because there's similarities between all. So where I came from, a number of 5 things happened, and those things normally could happen to anybody. Just one of them could have spiraled somebody into depression or using or needing help. That's where it started, then on the street, and then how to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. So were you homeless at one point yourself?
Yes.
You were, yeah. So this book that we're going to talk about today, Roads to Addiction, Highways to Recovery, and I've got a copy of the book here in front of me. It's recently published, and it's available at your website. I see addictionrealityeducation.com.
And Amazon.
And at Amazon as well. Were you a writer before this, before you found yourself out in the street? What were you doing before that?
I was wanted to be a writer, but I was a high-tech salesperson selling analytical predictive modeling software.
Really?
Yeah.
So how did you get into the street?
Well, started with the 5 items, if you'd like to discuss those 5 items.
Yeah.
In 2007, I went through a vicious divorce within Westboro. And most divorces can be good or they can be bad. This one was very bad. And that could throw somebody into a tizzy.
Sure.
Well, during that divorce trial, somebody tried to kill me.
Yeah.
And it was tied to the divorce. But he didn't get me, but I had trauma.
Yeah.
Got all through that. He went to jail. I got divorced. And then the 2009 capital crash.
Yeah.
Which I had bought back the house. My investments were in here and 2 other properties, all gone because of that crash. But I was still maintaining until I went to an operation. By then, people were abandoning me. I wasn't a network person. They didn't have value. And my son was still traumatized by the divorce. But I went in for an operation, local hospital, and they gave me an infection in my spine. So I had 3 more operations, 2 induced comas, 3 blood transfusions. I came back alive. But it was never really the same. and not being able to make the money that I was before. The house had to be liquidated, so on and so on. And one day, I found myself on the Grafton Library steps, and I realized I hit a car, but I didn't have anywhere to go. And that was scary.
Yeah.
And the reason I wrote the book, because you have those 5 items. Any one of those, especially with trauma, can put somebody into a depression or nervous, anxiety, whatever it might be. And they might revert to problems hurting themselves, addiction in alcohol or drugs per se, and they would never get out of it. Mm-hmm. The thought behind the book is those things can happen to anybody. And at any time during that phase, there's a phase 1. What I do is I italics in the book to say, could you have stopped at that particular point? So during phase 1 or those happenings, what would you have done to change it? You have a choice. And that's the choices that you can make. Unfortunately, I didn't follow my own advice, and I went onto the streets. Even there, you have a choice. But you've lost everything. You're in depression. You feel worthless. Mm-hmm. Here you were here, or even if you were middle class, I don't care where you were before. Now you're in the subculture. It's a different world.
So when you're in subculture, so phase 1 is realizing there were some bad choices. You could have made some changes.
Well,
basically, is that
the
am I
choices,
correct?
the happenings are out of my control, but the choices are mine.
Right. How you respond to what's happening.
Exactly.
And then phase 2 is actually being in that place.
Exactly. Right? Okay. And it's everything is real. The places, names have changed.
Okay.
But the shelters, the streets, the police department and their records, the shelter records, everything is in the book is all real.
Okay. So we're talking about you. This book, the Brian Masters story, is about you?
Yes.
Okay.
I decided to use a pen name.
Yeah. Well, probably for good reason. So we know about Brian. he's the main character in this book. And there were events that caused major depression and hopelessness, and you just described them, I think. And like you say, any of these could happen to anyone. Health, divorce, you you lose a job.
Well, that was the other part.
You get you devalued, especially as you get older, and
you have a medical. You're given a medical condition you didn't ask for, and then when you get out, you can't really articulate the way you were, and you're crippled. So who are they going to hire? Somebody at 45 or somebody at 55?
Yeah, right.
And he's crippled. So it was difficult to get back onto the account.
Right. So at some point in phase 2, Brian is homeless, he's depressed, he's traumatized, no money, no friends, just somehow surviving. What did Brian use to survive? Is he in a car? Does he get shelter somewhere?
Well, he starts out with a car. Brian starts out with a car. He ends up sleeping in bushes. Then he goes to shelters, and then he uses the system. This is how phase 3 will go. But right now, he's in Worcester shelter, he's in a Waltham shelter, he's in a Quincy shelter, and a couple other shelters. At which point he's moving around. And within the shelters, it's a different lifestyle. So by reading the book, you get educated on what really, really happens in a shelter.
Yeah.
I didn't write all of it because people wouldn't believe all of it.
Is it dangerous?
There's 2 things that can happen. Thank you for asking that. One, it can be very dangerous. And I've seen the prejudice, and I've seen what they do. Or you could have people like where I was here in Worcester in Queen Street. That when I walked in, I was a green guy, right? And an individual saw me, and he was a truck driver. He broke his leg, and he was okay. He taught me the ropes. So there are people out there that will help you. They're good. And then there's also the resources that are out there. So people bring clothes to the shelters and so on. But you learn. Keep your mouth shut. Don't talk. Don't ask questions. You answer a question, but you don't ask the question. Let it come up in a natural conversation. Because people think they're trying to get into their lives, and you don't know who they are or what their background is. It's not something you pick.
So how do you find, how do you even find out where the shelters are? If you're in a car or you're sleeping under a bush at some point, or find yourself in front of a library, how do you know where to go next?
Well, I was lucky. I did have a couple of friends still left. Long lost friend of Gary out in Canton, and Don Hansen over in Norwood. So one of their family might have experienced it. So they took me to Newton Wellesley Hospital. Newton Wellesley Hospital knew all the shelters, and that's how I started out. Once you're in a shelter institution, whatever it might be, you get the lay of the land, where to go and what to do. And you have to learn from it, or you don't survive. And when I say you don't survive, you might not survive.
Yeah.
Is what it boils down to.
You starve or get sick or something.
You get sick, you starve. I mean, I caught pneumonia in one of the places. It was a very interesting place, to say the least. It was Quincy. It's like a gulag, is the best way I can put it. So, but then you have the good ones that are really trying to help. So you learn on the street. You learn as you go. Now, if you keep trying to abuse what got you in there, or try to not address it, then you will stay there. Unfortunately, there is a layer of the subculture that will use the system. They want to be there. They're using the system. Now, that's probably a small percentage, 10%, 20%, but they're there. And those are the individuals, especially the young ones. I'm not trying to be prejudiced or anything, but the young ones have a lot of energy.
Right.
And the old ones don't.
So what do they get when they want to use the system? What do they really want? Is it just having a free place to stay, a free meal somewhere? And
You look at the, I can't remember off the bat, triangle. You have shelter, you have food, and you have financial help. Without those three, you're basically in trouble. So what they're looking for is shelter, food, money. The question is how they get the money. I've run across situations where I was in rooms where these guys were male prostitutes.
yeah.
And they were going to Framingham. And they didn't like me because I knew it. So it was a difficult situation.
Yeah.
But I got out of it.
Yeah. So that's where a lot of that trafficking comes into place, I guess, right? A lot of that.
It's on the streets.
Yeah.
But they know where to go.
Yeah.
And the police, the police, depending on the town, are not that bad. So, for example, Marlboro, they try to actually help individuals that are on the street. I work at the Recovery Connection there. They're tolerant, but they're not tolerant to the point where they're going to let drugs, they see drugs, that's it. You're out of it.
Yeah.
But they don't hit you over the head.
Right. Right. But they want you to stay focused. They're trying to
They want your help.
encourage you. So you wrote Roads to Addiction. What inspired you to actually, how did that happen? I mean, you're in a homeless situation. Don't you need some continuity and stability to even start writing a book?
That's phase 3.
Okay.
Thank you. We walked right into it. In phase 3, I was in the hospital still, on and off because of the spine. But I was able to get to a place on Lincoln Street in Marlboro, at which point now you're stable. It's still the subculture, but it's stable. And once you get there, then you have to think of how am I going to get out of this thing? Depression, how do I address that? Now you have time to think. I have shelter. And then food. You use the resources that are out there. The churches, St. Vincent de Paul, SMOC, which is out of Framingham. You also use Spectrum Health Systems, which is out of Worcester. So there's 11 points in the book. And if you follow the 11 points, there's a very good chance that you're going to get out of it. The 11 points have also been referenced and recommended by some of the top people in that industry, William White and Dr. Best out of London. You got to get away for 90 days. That's a start. Yale University put out a study. The study said, in order to repair a part of the brain that's been damaged due to your abuse, 90 days is a minimum. I don't care how you do it, whether you do it through AA and you can maintain that, or you go to Spectrum Health and stay there for 60 or 90 days. Whatever you can do, you need 90 days. From there, then you can think better. Then you need a place to stay. Then you need transportation.
Right.
And so it's 11 points that you go down to in a use. You might have to leave that town. Okay, if I'm in Worcester and I'm having a problem, if you don't stay in Worcester, you go to someplace else, Marlboro or whatever it might be. Try to get away from the people. Another one point is you stay away from those individuals.
Right.
And also you use the resources. Now, the resources around here are organizations like RISE. There's also Massachusetts Organization of Addiction Recovery, MORE. That's a very, very good one. Again, Spectrum Health Systems, very great operation. They have the centers around here. There's a recovery center here. There's a recovery center in Marlboro. Actually, there are 12. They're expanding it to 15. So in one of the points, you have to look for those resources. Resources of who can help you financially, who can help you where you need to go, and then also with the bullet where you have to have food and how to get the food.
Right.
Once you start moving that up, and it's very similar to Bill White's assessment that he created, you start to step up and you see yourself improving. There's forms that should be used right now for measuring your ability to do that. But you're in a situation where now I have enough money to get a car. I didn't have a car, I lost the car.
Yeah.
So now I have the money to get it. Now, how you get it is got to be the legal way. For me, I worked at Macy's. Now I'm on the street, my clothes are bad, but I had 2 suits still left over from the high-tech days. I'd get into the suit, take the local transportation, Metro West bus, go to the Solomon Powell Mall, work there. Nobody knew I was homeless. Left the job and went back to where I was staying. And I did that in JCPenney all the
So
time.
you had a place to leave your clothes where it could be safe.
Yeah.
So safety is another issue, I think.
Very. Did stay at one hotel that was not safe at all, but SMOC had an organization and they have a place where it was safe, and then that's where the improvement helped a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find, so addiction is a big issue. There are people within the system that are encouraging addiction because they're trying to make money on it, so they're obviously dealing drugs.
The more beds you fill, the better off you're going to be.
Right, right. So, and there's that end of it too, the industry of it, I guess. So thank God you made it out. Is there more than one way to make it out? You know, I know you got a list of 11 things, but is there more ways to get out of it?
You look at those organizations that I mentioned, because those have the resources and the sponsors that can work with you. AA is AA, but it's just part of a multiple path. It's like a portfolio.
Yeah.
You want to spread out your portfolio so if one fails, the others
you have
go
some
up,
options.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So use the multiple resources that are available. Let's not talk about the food right now, but organizations such as RISE. And there are organizations out of Boston for homelessness. There is one good one here in Westboro, I call them, but I can't reference them because they didn't give me but they're available. And they're more than happy to try to get you where you are. Now, if you fail in there, then you might lose your spot, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But if you don't do you mentioned the other, like Bill White's assessment, and they're actually SMOC uses or tries to use it. There's an assessment where you actually monitor yourself. I fill in the blanks. Check, I did this. Check, I did that. Check, I did this. Score goes higher and higher. Now you see yourself, it might have been at 47, now it's at 87. And the max is 175. So you see yourself improving.
Climbing up.
So there are programs that will be positive and positive reinforcement that were designed for this. And they have access to those. Matter of fact, I have it right here.
So, just for the sake of our audience, you're listening to William Butler. He's an author. Roads to Addiction is the book. Roads to Addiction, Highways to Recovery, the Brian Masters story. This is fascinating. How does with today's climate, with the COVID pandemic, how would have things been different? Are they worse than it might have been when you were on the street like that? Or, is there anything people should be aware of?
That's the big issue. I emailed both Dr. Best and William or Bill the other day, and he sent me back what they expect will happen. It will become more virtual, become more digital. And they feel that the face-to-face will not be as strong as it was because there's been a lapse, and my worry is that people are at home. What are they going to do?
Right.
So they either fall back or they keep doing what they're doing. They may use, or new people that have nothing to do might fall into it. That was why I contacted these individuals.
Right.
So the organizations I mentioned, or on-site, there's one which I would suggest to look at. It's called In the Rooms. That was a combination of Ken Promus and Ronald Tenenbaum. It's been around since 2008, but they're modifying it to address just that problem.
The fact that you have to use technology. There's going to be some more trust issues, I would think. If you can't talk to people face to face, there's a certain way that you can sort of tell where a person's coming from if it's face to face, but when virtually it's a little different.
Yeah, and the inflection, you can't hear the inflection of the voice, you can't watch your body movements, and there's little things we talk about, but when you're there, you watch for the inflection, you watch for the hand movements and everything else.
And then there's the issue, if you're homeless, you probably don't have access to technology too.
The nice thing about it, though, is you have the libraries.
Right.
For example, Northborough Library, I know Northborough Library is fantastic. Marlboro's one is fantastic. So you'll go to the libraries to get online.
So our library's still open right now?
No.
They're not?
No, not that I'm aware of.
So we have to be a little extra concerned then, I would think.
But the Recovery Connection, for example, which is fed by Spectrum, that's probably the wrong word. They, for example, mine in Marlborough has 3 setups.
Yeah.
And we'll teach people how to write resumes, how to get a Snap, and how to get online. They might watch Facebook. We're not really happy about that, but they have everything there in those types of centers that will help them get out of the situation.
Yeah.
And the peers, because now you're talking to people who had a problem or have a problem. Women might have trauma. Somebody might have bipolar. Somebody could have been abused. They don't have to be addicts to get the need that they need to have, but they have to have the ground roots in order to make them feel part of themselves. Right.
They have to take those steps. The steps apply no matter what.
Exactly.
The source of the problem is. So your book really takes people, gives them a chance to walk through your shoes, so to speak. They're walking in your shoes as they're reading this book, and they're taking these steps with you.
It's great to have a house in Lakewood and Pisaki with all the toys, and then all of a sudden you lose it.
Yeah.
And then 5 months later, you're washing toilets, cleaning toilets so you can have a bed for the night. That is not a very pleasant experience. So yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And either you stay there or you get out of it.
Right.
And I watch a lot of people get out of it. So it's, even the directors, most of the directors were in those situations.
What are your goals? As an author now, are you going to continue? Now, are you on your own now? Are you able to?
Oh yeah,
sustain?
I have an apartment in Westboro. I have a lady friend. By the way, you shouldn't have any relationships during this period we're talking about.
I imagine it'd be pretty difficult.
That's one of the things. You maybe wait a year or so, because it becomes problems.
Yeah.
Back with the Civic Club and work with St. Vincent de Paul in Marlboro. Have the car. Have money coming in because of SSDI or some basis foundation. So those shelter, money, food is all taken care of.
Yeah.
Positive reinforcement.
Yeah. So now, after going through all this experience and
I don't want to write. I'm writing another book too.
excellent. I'm glad to hear that. So, writing a book, working on another one. Do you feel somehow that this was, I don't know how else to phrase it, but sort of like a blessing in disguise for you? Do you feel better off now than you were before all this happened? Do you feel like this has been there's a chance for you to grow as a person?
When you get a letter from Oregon,
Yeah.
and because they read the book, and they sent an email to their sister who knows me, and they sent it back to me, which said, I read it, I did it, and it saved my life.
Wow. Yeah.
And I get emails like that. You can't publish them because of names and so on, but it saved their life. I'm not saying it'll work for everybody, but it gave them hope. If you look at the title of the book,
Yeah.
and right below it, I had an illustrator who worked for Disney, actually. I was lucky on that.
You can show the book at him. Yeah.
And that is it could be a man or a woman.
Hope.
Most of the time you're looking down, you're walking like that. Normal time you have a backpack, but the word hope in the back is what I'm trying to illustrate. All the other things are things that you need. There's one thing also you need too is medical support. I have great medical support from doctors in Metro West, Westboro. Dr. B, I'll call him Dr. B, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And his staff, even though I was down and out, they didn't look at that. They just were trying to help me out.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your goals here right now? We got about 1 minute left. What are your goals here? And maybe give our viewers a final message, if you will, if you
Sure.
have some advice.
Right now I'm doing book signings, and I'm motivated to get in front of the camera to have people look at the book. The book is on Amazon. I am, if anybody's out there, I am looking for an agent and a publisher right now.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather have that, especially for the second book. And what I'd want to say is no matter what you do, no matter how you fall into it, one of those 5 things or even worse than that, there is hope out there. There are the resources that you can draw on if you take the choice to do it, even therapy. If you take the choice to do it, then the path might change. But if you don't, I wanted to make sure in phase 2 people understood that it's not pleasant and how to get the ways out. That's what I wanted to illustrate.
Yeah.
And I would like to sell the books, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Right.
And the next book I think is going to even be better. So
What's that going to be about, the next book?
it's about medical professionals and patients, 2 different perspectives.
Okay.
I was in 12 rehabs, physical rehabs, because of infections that the hospitals gave me, and 11 operations, and I've learned a lot. So it is going to be about their roles, your roles, how to pick a surgeon, how to pick a hospital, how to pick
Oh, good.
rehab,
Yeah.
what to look for, who are their characters.
Yeah.
You know, the surgeons
Sounds like
are just normal people,
Yeah.
they're specialists. But you go to just one, you could end up like me.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be about. It's and pain, how to get through pain and things like
Well, William Butler, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing the book with us here on at WCCA on Daily Breaking. Roads to Recovery, Roads to Addiction, Highways to Recovery. And notice the highway is quicker to recovery than the roads.
That's it.
I know
You
there's
just got it.
I got that there. But, I think the message here is, hope. I would say choose hope. I know William spoke about, you have choices. You have choices you can make. Start with choosing hope and keep it there. Thank you so much, William.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck with all you're doing.
I'd like to be back too sometime.
You know what? We'll have you come back and talk about your next book.
Sounds good.
How's that sound?
Thank you.
We look forward to that. Folks, this is Mauro DiPasquale. I want to thank you for joining us on this special edition of Daily Breaking. If you have issues suffering with addiction, we'll have some information here at WCCA to give us a call, 508-755-1880, or you can look us up online, WCCATV.com. Until next time, for Daily Breaking, I'm Mauro DiPasquale. Look forward to seeing you on the People's Channel.